I never thought a day would come when my own daughter would look me in the eye and say, "Mom, I think it's time for you to go." You know how people say you never forget the sound of your child's first cry? I'll tell you something else. You also never forget the sound of your child shutting the door on you. It was a cold morning in Portland. The sky was pale and the air smelled like rain. I'd made pancakes the way Emily used to love them when she was little, blueberries. A touch of cinnamon and too much syrup. She didn't touch them. She sat across the kitchen table, arms folded, scrolling on her phone while I talked about how the roof needed fixing. She didn't look up. Then she sighed, one of those heavy sighs that make you feel small, and said, "Mom, you've been here for months. You need your own space. It's just too much, too much." That's what she said to the woman who raised her alone after her father walked out. The woman who worked 3 jobs to keep that little house. The same house I later sold so Emily could buy this one. The house she was now asking me to leave. I remember my hands shaking as I tried to drink my coffee. I wanted to argue, but something in her tone told me it wouldn't matter. So I nodded, quiet, because that's who I've always been, quiet when hurt. "Sure," I said softly. "I'll find somewhere else." She didn't say sorry. She didn't even look at me. That night, I packed my suitcase. The same one she used when she left for college. I folded my clothes slowly, like folding the years of my life into silence. Every sweater held a story, the one I wear upon when she was sick, the one I wore at her wedding. I remember touching the sleeve of her baby blanket that I'd kept all these years. Soft and faded like a memory you can't let go of. When I walked to the front door, she was standing by the staircase, arms crossed, whispering something to her husband, Jason. They both avoided my eyes. "Take care of yourself." "Mom," she said. I smiled, though my throat burned. "Always do." The door clicked shut behind me. And just like that, I was no longer welcome in the house I paid for. I sat in my car for a long time before driving away. The rain started, gentle at first, then heavy, blurring everything outside. I remember gripping the steering wheel and laughing quietly. Not because it was funny, but because it was unreal. How does a mother become a stranger? How does love turn into something cold and sharp? I parked near the old diner where I used to take her every Sunday after church. I ordered a coffee I didn't drink and stared at the empty seat across from me. That's when something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was a quiet, aching kind of clarity. You see, I wasn't some helpless old woman. Before I was Mom, I was Margaret Lewis, business consultant, investor. And the woman who taught her daughter that independence came from hard work, not handouts. The house she and Jason lived in? It was bought under my name. I just never told her that. Maybe that was my first mistake, trusting love to remember gratitude. That night, when I checked into a small motel outside the city, I opened my old laptop. The screen flickered, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than sadness. I felt control. Every paper, every deed, every payment I'd ever made for that house. I had it all saved. She didn't know. As I scrolled through the documents, I saw my reflection on the screen, tired eyes, messy hair but steady hands. I smiled faintly. She thought she kicked me out of her house. But she had no idea what kind of storm she just invited into her life. That night, I wrote a single line in my old diary. The same one I used when I was her age. Sometimes the people you love the most teach you how to stop loving blindly. And as the rain tapped against the motel window, I made myself a quiet promise. I wouldn't shout or beg or break down. No, I'd simply remind my daughter who really paid for that house. Asterisk. The first week after Emily kicked me out was quiet to quiet. You'd think at 48 I'd have learned to handle silence. But this one wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that hums in your ears, like the world's trying to remind you something's missing. Every morning I woke up in that little motel room with the sound of trucks passing outside. I'd make cheap coffee in a paper cup and sit by the window, watching other people start their day, families, couples, even dogs being walked, and I'd wonder when my daughter stopped seeing me as family. I kept checking my phone. No call, no text. Not even a "Did you make it okay, Mom?" 3 days later, I finally called her. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail, keeping my voice calm. "Hey, sweetheart. Just checking in. Hope you're doing all right. Love you." She never called back. That night, while I sat in the motel's small dining area, the TV in the corner was playing some home buying show. A couple was talking about how they'd finally found their forever home. I almost laughed. Forever. Nothing's forever. I opened my laptop again. I wasn't planning revenge, not yet. I just needed to understand. So I went through my old financial folders. Years of payments, repairs, and renovations, every invoice, every deposit slip. All from my accounts. All under my name. When Emily married Jason, I transferred ownership to a temporary family trust. It was supposed to protect the property in case something happened to me. Jason had suggested it. Said it'd make taxes easier. I trusted him like a fool, but that night, as I read through the papers, something felt off. The last transfer document, the one that supposedly made the house theirs, didn't have my signature. It was digital and forged. The signature looked close enough, but I knew how my hand curved on them. Whoever did this copied an old signature from a check or a form. Jason worked in real estate. He'd know exactly how to do it. My throat went dry. I scrolled faster, checking dates, matching accounts. The same week Emily had suggested I move in with them was the same week that fake document had been filed. I sat back, heart pounding. They hadn't just kicked me out. They'd planned it. The next morning, I drove back to the neighborhood. Not to the house, just nearby. I parked across from the small park where Emily used to play when she was little. From there, I could see the house. My house. She was outside watering the plants, humming something. Wearing that yellow dress I'd bought her last Mother's Day. Jason came out a few minutes later, coffee in hand. They looked happy. And for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize my own daughter. She'd grown into someone else, colder, sharper. Like life had turned her heart into glass. I rolled down the car window slightly and listened to the birds. The sound of kids playing, the soft thud of a basketball from a few houses away. It was the kind of morning we used to love together, and suddenly I realized something. I didn't just lose a home. I lost the only person I thought would never betray me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice, "Mom, you need your own space." It looped in my head until I almost believed it, but then another voice spoke up inside me, calm, older, wiser. The one that had gotten me through everything life had thrown my way. "You built that house. Margaret. You built her. Don't let them erase you." I sat up and turned on the lamp. My eyes fell on the old photograph beside the bed. Emily at 6 years old, holding a paintbrush, standing in front of the half-finished house. The walls behind her were still bare, just wood and sunlight. I remembered that day clearly. She'd said, "Mommy, this will be our forever home." And I'd promised, yes, baby, forever. Promises are funny things. They can outlive love, but they never die quietly. I picked up my phone and called an old friend, Clara Dawson. We hadn't talked in years. She used to be my financial advisor, now retired in Florida. But she always told me, "If you ever smell something fishy, call me first." When she answered, her voice was half asleep. "Maggie, wow, it's been forever. You okay?" I hesitated. "Clara, I think my daughter and her husband forged a deed transfer." Silence. "Then, tell me everything." I did. Every detail. Every line. Every tear I'd swallowed. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Don't confront them yet. Don't even let them know you've seen it. Just gather proof." Quietly, her tone was steady, businesslike. That was the thing about Clara, she didn't comfort. She planned. "You have something they don't, Maggie," she said. "Patience. And a damn good memory." I smiled for the first time in days. The next few weeks, I worked quietly from that motel room. I requested bank statements, emailed lawyers, and traced every transaction related to that property. Each paper led to another thread, another secret. Jason had remortgaged the house twice in the last year without telling me. Using my equity, and the money? Gone, transferred to a new account under his business name, JL Home Ventures. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft. I printed everything out, paper by paper, until the small motel desk was covered in evidence. Receipts, deeds, signatures, every piece of their deception staring back at me like ghosts. I sat back, my eyes burning from the computer light. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered to myself, "You wanted space. Emily, now I'll give you all the space you need between your lies and the truth." And that's when my plan began. Not a wild, angry revenge, but a patient one. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that waits, because I wasn't going to destroy her. I was going to remind her who I was, what I built, and how everything she stood on was mine. It's strange how quickly pain turns into purpose. One moment you're crying over what you lost, and the next, you're too focused to even notice the tears have stopped. That's what happened to me. Somewhere between the sleepless nights and the endless emails, I stopped feeling like a mother who'd been thrown out and started remembering who I was. Before I became mom, the motel manager, Tom, noticed me coming and going every day with stacks of papers. He must have thought I was writing a book or filing taxes for half the city. "You running a business in there?" he joked one morning. I smiled faintly. Something like that. He didn't ask again. I spent hours at the public library, scanning records, looking up property documents, checking loan histories. Every time Jason's name came up, my heart would twist, but my hands stayed steady. I'd always been good with details. That's how I built my consulting career back in the day, by noticing what others missed. It turns out, those instincts don't fade with age. One evening, While going through an old email folder, I found something I'd forgotten about. An authorization letter Jason had asked me to sign 2 years ago. He told me it was just for insurance purposes, but the attachment wasn't insurance. It was a limited power of attorney, giving him the right to handle property paperwork. On my behalf, he'd used it to transfer the deed. I stared at the screen for a long time, every nerve in my body going cold. He had planned this from the beginning, and Emily. Did she know? Or was she just following his lead like a shadow? Part of me prayed she didn't know, that she was blind to it, naive, or manipulated. But deep down, I already knew the truth. She'd changed long before that day she kicked me out. I just hadn't wanted to see it. The next morning, I met with a lawyer Clara had recommended, Michael Green, downtown Portland. He was maybe in his early 50s, sharp suit, calm eyes. The kind of man who'd seen too many family betrayals to be surprised by another. He listened quietly as I laid out the story, how I'd paid for the house, the fake signature, the trust transfer, everything. When I finished, he leaned back and sighed. Mrs. Lewis, he said, what they did, if we can prove it, isn't just unethical. It's criminal. I nodded slowly. Can we prove it? A small smile curved his mouth. You kept everything. That's rare. So yes, we can. He spent the next hour going over details, marking documents, asking for copies. But then he looked at me and said something that stopped me cold. You need to understand, this will expose your daughter publicly once this goes to court. It's all out there. Are you ready for that? I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had held her through fevers, birthdays, heartbreaks. They looked older now, wrinkled, vain, tired. I thought about what I'd lose, or maybe what I'd already lost, and then I said quietly, she already made her choice. Now it's time for me to make mine. That night, back at the motel, I couldn't stop thinking about her face. The way she used to laugh when she was little. The way she'd hug me so tight I'd almost lose my breath. I wanted to hate her. God, I tried. But hate never fit right in me. It burned too fast and left me empty. So I did what I've always done. I turned the pain into fuel. I began writing everything down, dates, calls, memories, even the smallest details of what had happened the weeks before she told me to leave. I needed the story to be complete, every line backed by truth. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about remembrance of who I'd been, what I'd built, and how I refused to disappear quietly. A few days later, I went back to the house. I didn't knock. I just stood across the street, pretending to be on a walk. The autumn leaves had started falling, golden and crisp, swirling around the mailbox that still had my name printed faintly underneath the new one. Through the window, I saw them laughing. Jason, Emily, and a woman I didn't recognize, maybe one of her new friends. They looked perfect, and yet, I could see it in Emily's eyes. That flicker of guilt. It was there. Just a flash, but it was enough that she knew. That's when I whispered to myself, then you'll learn. Emily, you'll learn what truth feels like when it finally knocks. 2 weeks later, the lawyer called. We have everything we need, he said. But it's your call. Do we file now, or wait? I looked out the motel window at the gray Portland sky. The rain was falling again, soft and endless. Wait, I said. I'm not done yet. Not done? He asked. I smiled faintly. No, I want her to see it coming, slowly. I want her to feel what she did to me. There was silence on the line. Then a quiet respect in his voice. All right, Mrs. Lewis, when you're ready. That night, I dressed up for the first time in weeks. A simple gray sweater, pearl earrings, neat hair. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back, not the broken mother. Not the quiet victim, someone older, wiser, dangerous in her calmness. I took a deep breath and whispered, I'm back, Margaret. The woman you used to be. Then I smiled, slow and deliberate. Because for the first time since she shut that door on me, I knew exactly how I'd open it again. 3 weeks had passed since I left that house. Long enough for the ache to dull, but not enough for the memories to fade. I still remembered the smell of her kitchen, lemon cleaner and fresh coffee. The way sunlight used to fall through the window on Sunday mornings, while we cooked breakfast together. But that house wasn't a home anymore. It was a stage. And I was ready to make my entrance, not as a guest, but as a reminder. That morning I called her. She didn't answer the first time. The second time, she picked up, her voice tight, cautious. Mom? Why are you calling? I smiled, though she couldn't see it. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I might stop by for a minute. Just to see you. She hesitated. Jason's working from home. It's not a good time. I let the silence linger just long enough to make her uncomfortable. Oh, I said softly. I understand. I'll just swing by to drop something off. It won't take long. Before she could reply, I hung up. The drive there felt surreal. The city looked the same, wet roads, people rushing, coffee shops buzzing, but everything inside me had changed. I wasn't going there as a mother hoping to be forgiven. I was going as a woman who finally remembered her worth when I pulled up to the house. Jason's car was in the driveway. Good. I walked up the steps. Heels clicking on the wood, each sound steady, confident. The same front porch where Emily once learned to ride her tricycle. The same steps I'd painted myself years ago. When the door opened, Jason stood there, looking surprised and slightly annoyed. "Margaret," he said, forcing a smile. "Didn't expect to see you, I can tell," I said lightly. "Is Emily home?" He hesitated, then called out, Your mom's here." She came down a few seconds later, wearing that same uneasy smile. "Hi, Mom, you didn't have to come all the way." "I know," I interrupted softly, "but I wanted to see you both." I brought something from my purse. I pulled out a small envelope. One of the old photographs from when the house was being built. Emily at 6 years old, standing in the mud with her little paintbrush. She looked at it, eyes softening for a moment. "Where did you find this?" "In one of my old boxes," I said. "Thought you might want to keep it. You look happy in it." Jason glanced at me, his smile polite but tight. "That was a long time ago." I turned to him and smiled. "Yes, back when people still remembered who helped them build their dreams." He froze, just for a second, and I knew he understood what I meant. Emily shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, let's not do this." "Do what?" I asked gently. "Reminisce? We used to do that all the time." Jason stepped in. "Margaret, maybe we can talk later." "Oh, I'm sure we will," I said, still calm. "But for now, I just wanted to see how the place was holding up." "You've taken good care of it." I looked around. New furniture, expensive art, cold design. No warmth, no soul. Just money. "Looks different," I said. "Almost doesn't feel like home anymore." Jason crossed his arms. "Well, we've made a few changes. I can see that." I smiled faintly. "Though I'd keep an eye on the foundation. This place can crack in ways you don't notice. Until it's too late." His jaw tightened. Emily frowned. I just patted her arm gently. "Take care of yourself, sweetheart," I said softly. "End of the house. It's important to remember where things come from." Then I turned and walked out before either of them could respond. Back in my car, I sat for a long moment watching the curtains move inside the house. Jason had followed me to the window, whispering something to Emily. She looked pale, nervous. "Good. Let the unease begin," because from that moment on, I wanted them to feel the same doubt that had kept me awake for weeks, the kind that grows slowly, like a cracking glass. That evening, I emailed my lawyer. Subject line, "Proceed." He replied within minutes. "Understood. Filing first motion tomorrow." The wheels of truth had begun to turn, but I wasn't done. I wanted to see their faces, not when they were angry, but when realization started to dawn. So I played it patient. I sent Emily a short text later that week. "Just wanted to say thank you for letting me stop by. You've made a lovely home. Proud of you." She replied a few minutes later, "Thanks, Mom. I hope we can talk soon. Things have been stressful. Yes, I bet they were. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet, deliberately. No calls, no visits. Just silence. And silence, I've learned, can be louder than any confrontation, because 2 weeks later, I got the first sign that my plan was working. A voicemail from Emily. Her voice trembled a little. "Mom, I just wanted to check in. I heard from the bank today. Something about title verification or... I don't know. I'm a little confused. Can we talk?" I smiled as I listened to it again. That was the sound of guilt meeting fear. I didn't call her back that day. Instead, I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the motel window, and wrote in my diary again. The truth doesn't need to chase anyone. It simply waits until the lies collapse under their own weight. I closed the book gently, the rain tapping against the glass again. Like applause from the universe itself, they thought they could take everything from me, my home, my dignity, my peace. But they forgot who taught them how to build in the first place. And this time, I wasn't just building a case. I was building their reckoning. Asterisk. It started with a text from Jason, short, formal, nervous. "Margaret, could we meet? There seems to be some misunderstanding about the house paperwork." Misunderstanding. That's what liars call the truth when it shows up too early. I waited a few hours before replying. "Of course. Tomorrow at noon. My lawyer will be there too." When I arrived at the small law office downtown, Jason and Emily were already sitting across from each other, pretending not to be angry. Jason's tie was crooked. Emily's eyes were red. Good, they hadn't slept. I walked in calmly, placed my purse on the table, and nodded to my lawyer, Mr. Porter, an old friend of mine from my consulting days. "Shall we begin?" I said politely. Jason forced a smile. "Yes, we just wanted to clear up a few things. The bank called us about some title irregularities, and mentioned your name being on certain documents." I finished for him. "Yes, I know. Because I signed them." Emily blinked. "Wait. You mean you still own?" I turned to her gently. "Emily, sweetheart, I never transferred the deed. I wanted to, but you said you and Jason needed time to settle your finances. Remember? Jason's face went pale. I thought we finalized that months ago. You didn't, I said simply. You pretended you did. You printed fake copies, which, by the way, is fraud. The air went still. My lawyer leaned forward, sliding a folder across the table. Everything's documented, he said. Every payment, every signature. Mrs. Lewis is the sole legal owner of the property. Emily's voice cracked. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Because I trusted you, I said softly. I believed you'd never use my kindness against me. I was wrong, she lowered her gaze. Jason rubbed his temples, whispering something under his breath. Porter continued. We're not here to press charges today. Mrs. Lewis simply wants her property back. Jason shot up. You can't just, oh, I can, I interrupted, my tone steady but calm. And I already have. The legal notice was filed yesterday. You'll receive the official letter this week. Emily's lip trembled. Mom, please, we'll figure this out. Jason he thought it was done, that the paperwork. I stood up. Emily, I spent 30 years working for that house. You think I'd forget to check the papers? Jason's jaw clenched. So this is revenge? I smiled faintly. No, Jason, this is reality. I'm simply reclaiming what's mine. The meeting ended quietly. No shouting, no chaos, just silence. That's how truth works. It doesn't scream. It sits still while everyone else falls apart around it. As I left, Emily called after me. Mom, wait, please, don't do this. I turned, my hand on the door. I already did, honey. You did this the day you asked me to leave. That night, I drove back to my motel. Exhausted but lighter than I'd felt in months. There's a strange kind of peace that comes after standing up for yourself, not loud, not dramatic. Just quiet relief. I made myself tea, sat by the window again, and listened to the rain. Always the rain. It had followed me through every chapter of this story, washing away old pain, one drop at a time. 2 days later, Emily showed up unannounced. I saw her through the window before she even knocked. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup smudged. I opened the door slowly. Mom, she whispered, voice shaking. Can we talk? I nodded, motioning her inside. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling. Jason's furious. He says it's all my fault. I didn't know he forged those signatures, I swear. He said it was just a formality. I stayed quiet, letting her speak. Then she started to cry, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the kind that breaks your heart because it's raw and real. Mom, I'm sorry. I was selfish. I thought you'd always be there no matter what. I thought I could just push you away and you'd still come running when I needed you. Her voice cracked. But you didn't, you really left. I took a deep breath. Because you needed to see what it felt like. To stand on your own. To realize what you'd become. She nodded, tears falling freely now. I hate what I did to you. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the rain and her quiet sobs. Then I reached over and took her hand. Emily, I said softly, you can't undo what's been done. But you can learn from it. Maybe that's how we start over. She looked up, eyes red but hopeful. You'd still want that? After everything? I smiled faintly. You're my daughter. I'll always want that. But next time, we rebuild on truth, not guilt. She nodded slowly. And Jason? I exhaled. Jason can live with the consequences he built for himself. That night, after she left, I sat alone again, this time not in sadness, but in calm. For years, I thought strength meant staying quiet, keeping peace, being the forgiving mother, but now I understood strength also means drawing lines. I poured myself a glass of wine, lifted it slightly toward the window and whispered to the rain, to endings that save us, and to beginnings we never saw coming. It had been 6 weeks since that meeting, 6 quiet, healing weeks. The court papers came through without resistance. Jason didn't fight. Maybe he knew he'd lose, or maybe guilt finally did what words never could. The house was legally mine again. The same house I once built with love, laughter, and the smell of Sunday pancakes. The same house I was thrown out of like a stranger. Now, I was walking through it again. Alone, while movers carried out the last of Jason's things, the air was heavy with memories. There, by the kitchen window, I could almost see little Emily sitting on the counter, her legs swinging as I braided her hair before school. She used to say, Mom, I'll buy you a big house one day. I smiled sadly. She did. She just forgot whose hands built the first one when the movers left. The silence felt sacred, like the house was holding its breath. I walked room to room, touching the walls, tracing the marks where family photos once hung. In the living room, a single box sat on the floor. It had my name on it, in Emily's handwriting. I hesitated before opening it. Inside, I found the old family photo albums, my wedding ring, a yellowed letter from my late husband, and a note from Emily. Mom, if you're reading this, I guess you're back where you belong. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you find peace here, even if it's without me. Love, Emily. My throat tightened. Forgiveness, such a small word, such a heavy thing that evening. Emily came by quietly. She didn't knock this time, she just stood at the door, hesitant. As if she were entering someone else's life. Hi, she said softly. Hi, I replied. She stepped inside. Eyes wandering over the furniture, the photos. The light spilling through the curtains. It feels different, she whispered. Calmer, it's because the house remembers peace, I said. It always did. We sat on the couch, the same one we used to watch movies on, her head in my lap, my hand in her hair. Now there was distance, but also a fragile hope sitting between us. I talked to a lawyer. She said quietly. Jason's leaving town. The deal's over. The investors pulled out. I nodded. I'm not surprised, she hesitated. He said I ruined everything. I looked at her. No, Emily, he did. You just believed him. Her eyes filled with tears. Can I stay here for a while? Just until I figure things out? I smiled softly. This was always your home, Emily. I never took that from you. You just needed to remember who built it. Days passed slowly after that. Emily helped repaint the walls, fix the old porch swing, and plant flowers in the front yard. Just like we used to. Sometimes we didn't talk much. Sometimes we laughed like nothing had happened. Healing isn't loud. It's made of small moments, cups of tea, shared silences, gentle forgiveness. One night, while we were sitting on the porch, she said something that stayed with me. Mom, you didn't just take back your house. You took back yourself. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time I felt proud. Yes, I said softly. I did. A week later, I went to the lake nearby, the same one where I used to walk after work. Where I cried the first night Emily threw me out. The air was calm, golden with sunset. I stood there quietly, the water reflecting everything I'd lost and found again. I whispered to the wind, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without breaking, and for the first time in years, I felt peace settle deep in my chest. I pulled out my phone and typed a short message to Emily. Dinner's at 7. Come home, she replied with a heart emoji, nothing more. But that tiny symbol meant everything. That night, as I set the table, I looked around at the home that had seen every shade of my life, love, loss, betrayal, and rebirth, and I realized something. Revenge wasn't what healed me. Truth did. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply standing again, quietly, gracefully, in the very place they tried to bury you. Asterisk. A mother stands by the window, the house glowing behind her. Asterisk. She took nothing from them, only what was hers. And in doing so, she took back her peace. Asterisk. Sometimes, the people we love the most forget who stood beside them when no one else did. But life has a way of bringing truth back home. Asterisk. If this story touched your heart, take a moment, breathe, and remember, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's how strong women start again. Asterisk. If you believe in quiet strength, in truth, in love, and in justice that doesn't need to shout, then you belong here. With stories like this one. Asterisk. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us all that a woman's silence is never her surrender. Asterisk. This is Voice of Elena, where every story finds its truth.